to the Black Madonna Speaks, with me, your host, Stephanie Georgiev. I'm also the author of The Black Madonna, Mysterious Soul Companion. There's an ancient Chinese blessing that I'm starting to dread. May you live in interesting times. Since I am total hedonist, living through our current era is basically exhausting to me. I'm sure I'm not alone in longing for boredom, of missing those days about worrying only about trying a new recipe or organizing closets or sorting coupons instead of worrying about global nuclear war and the collapse of nature. I've tried to stay out of politics through my writing, speaking, and publicity regarding my book, The Black Madonna. But to highlight another quote, silence in the face of evil is itself evil. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. These words are also tugging at my heartstrings, my typing fingers and vocal cords at a greater intensity than my desire not to alienate potential book buyers with my politics. With recent events around the world, and especially within the United States of America, I feel compelled to speak out on what inspires me personally and what I feel is the deep message of the Black Madonna for our times. I wish also to begin with my experiences, particularly with my YouTube channel, The Heart of the Black Madonna, and some of the responses and comments that I have noted throughout the few years this channel has been in existence. Full disclosure, I'm what most people would consider white. I grew up in an upper middle class family where both of my parents were professionals. I had all manner of opportunities given to me because of this background. I realize this, am grateful for my status, and realize that not everyone has had my opportunities due to their economic, cultural, or racial status. I also am very, very clear about how my opportunities were given to me predominantly because of my race in the culture that I grew up. And I am very sad that those opportunities were not given to others for very arbitrary reasons, such as the color of their skin. My father taught me that because of my privilege, it was my Christian duty to be generous towards others. He told me on more than one occasion, to more who has been given, more is expected. I later found out this was a paraphrase of the Bible verse of Christ speaking in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verse 48. This verse, along with what I consider to be the most important direction for Christians and humanity, is found in Matthew 25. And this message, which also guides me in all aspects of my professional and personal life, whatever you do to the least of my brethren, you do to me also. What I'm trying to convey is that I recognized at an early age the importance of sharing my privilege and treating everyone with respect and dignity, no matter who they were. Because when I was treating someone a certain way, I was actually behaving towards the Christ within them. I was also raised in a very diverse community in Southern California. My parents and friends had colleagues from every background and religion. We socialized and worked with these various communities on numerous projects, from professional to religious and recreational. I had the delightful experience of teaching Sunday school for the Korean United Methodist Church that used my home church on Sunday afternoons. I was seen as the liaison between congregations and fell in love with the children, their parents, and the amazing Korean potlucks after the church services. The city I grew up in was 85% Latino. The majority of that was of Mexican American heritage. Through my work as a healthcare professional, I came to understand on a deep level that all humans, regardless of external skin pigmentation, were essentially the same inside. All peoples bleed when cut. All peoples succumb to bacteria and viruses. And all peoples are equally challenged by things like cancer, diabetes, and arthritis. Combining my professional life with my opportunity to travel around the world, along with my father's East European relatives I had the great honor to visit throughout the years, I was keenly aware that humans, regardless of their origins, religious beliefs, cultures, or geographical location, are essentially the same. They definitely approach things a little differently, but we're really all the same. What was especially poignant for me was that my relatives were in communist countries, which meant I knew was related to and loved people who were living in what certain American presidents called the evil empire, and what my country wanted to bomb into oblivion. Through language and cultural exchanges, I traveled throughout the Eastern Bloc nations and came to see that these people loved their children. They desired good lives. They wanted education. They wanted good jobs. They enjoyed food. They basically desired everything that people in my country desired. Every human being desires to be loved, to have safety and security, to care for their families, and to feel fulfilled in their lives. This is not the sole consciousness and propriety of upper middle class white Americans. These are truths for every demographic on earth. Through my Christian orientation and my spiritual life, I recognize what is called universalism, meaning we are all part of the grand universe, that we are all part of the family of the Creator. We all carry the spark of divinity within. And through Christ's deed on Golgotha, we are all seen as equal in the eyes of our Creator. We are part of the Creator, as Christ said in Matthew 25. With the advent of the internet and 24-hour television and radio capabilities, life itself has taken on a dramatic pace I do not think humanity has ever experienced before. For the first time in human evolution, we have the capacity to see and hear about what is going on all over the planet at all hours of the day and night. Most of what we are witnessing through mass media is either vapid, crass entertainment and meaningless mumbling, or extremely upsetting, such as in the case of images of war, refugees, natural disasters, and great injustices to various groups of people. The latter can send a powerful message that we are weak and helpless and at the mercy of things we cannot control. When I started the YouTube channel, The Heart of the Black Madonna, I posted webinars that I had used to help raise funds to self-publish my book, The Black Madonna Mysterious Soul Companion. I was allowed by the webinar service to record the sessions and transform them into MP4s into videos suitable for YouTube. To be honest, after the postings, I got lost in my daily life and responsibilities, as well as in the arduous process of self-publishing, which involves endless editing and so forth. So I forgot completely about the channel. When the book was about to be published, I started doing my own publicity, and then I remembered that I had the channel. Thinking that it would be a good idea to post announcements about the book and so on, I decided to create new videos. When I opened my channel, to my surprise, I had over 12,000 views of my content and numerous subscribers. What was also informative were the comments left under the videos. Most were complimentary or inquisitive, but there were many comments designed to be accusatory. telling me it was impossible or insulting for a white woman to discuss the Black Madonna. Some called me vile names, as well as telling me I was wrong and uninformed. What I sensed in these comments was a deep hurt and anger. I was not insulted by these comments. I was not intimidated. I was just saddened because I recognized that these people were exhausted and deeply wounded by the racism perpetuated against them. And they might have felt yet another realm of theirs was being appropriated or misunderstood by yet another ignorant, privileged white person. I removed the comments that were full of foul language, but I took to heart the comments expressing frustration with my attempts to understand the artistic genre of the Black Madonna from a white perspective. I also want to thank those who left the negative comments, even the foul ones, and say, I hear you, I honor your experience, and I recognize you as my fellow companion on this beautiful planet, and I wish you healing and fulfillment. This is the background and perspective I bring to my writing and speaking. I bring this background, actually, to everything that I do, but I bring this background to my writing and speaking on the Black Madonna, and I just want to clarify that. So in this segment, I want to try to address deeply the painful but necessary topic of culture and race through the concepts I understand the Black Madonna is conveying. I want to bring the Black Madonna, my perspective of the Black Madonna, as something to ponder during these very emotionally challenged times, so that we can see the Black Madonna as a gift, an invitation of the spiritual world as to how we are to be during these difficult times. From a scholarly perspective, the Black Madonna is considered to be an artistic genre where the Madonna and Christ child are black or very dark brown, in geographical areas where the population is white. This concept is applied to artistic presentations in Northwest and Eastern Europe. There seems to be various reasons why the Madonna are black. One is that they have been darkened through the ages. The other is the works of art have been brought to the continent from Africa. And the other is that the works of art are deliberately created black, even though they were painted or carved in Europe during the Middle Ages. The mystery of these images is why. I recognize that obviously if the images were made in Africa, they would resemble the populations there. But why were these images brought to the European continent? And why were later images made throughout the Middle Ages up to the Renaissance in Europe to be deliberately black when so many artists were creating images of the Madonna and Child which resembled the local European populations, which meant they were blonde and blue-eyed? In my book, The Black Madonna, Mysterious Soul Companion, I attempt to delve into reasons for this phenomena. I write in the book, and I will say again, these are my impressions, and I in no way consider myself the definitive be-all, end-all guide to the Black Madonna. These are simply my insights, and I welcome and encourage each and every one of my readers and viewers to use my insights as an inspiration to form your own orientation towards the Black Madonna. I feel the only wrong way to approach the Black Madonna is to use her as an agent of oppression, and this is, to my knowledge, never really been done. But all other understandings besides this, I feel, are equally valid. I am simply offering my insights into the meaning of this beautiful image. My book explores the Black Madonna from many different vantages, their placements, their narratives, their origins, their presentations, and the ages from which they come. Obviously, the most striking thing about these images is their color, which is black, What I find fascinating is how so many of these images have extremely large hands and very somber faces. I am also struck that they were made in the time period between the 3rd through the 15th centuries. What I have also come to realize is that the Black Madonna is the definitive art form of the first millennia of Christianity. So what do these qualities, the Black Madonnas, have to do with culture and race? As I say repeatedly in my book and on this podcast, my main thesis for all of this is that art is a method of communication between the spiritual world and humanity. Taking this tenet, what is it that the gods are trying to tell us through the Black Madonna? The symbolism of the Madonna, the mother of Jesus, is multi-leveled. While I believe she is a historical figure, the mother of Jesus, her task and example in human evolution is to show the way of the divine feminine, but also to show the way of perfected humanity, the completed human, in that she housed and birthed the Christ. The Madonna Mary was the first one to say yes to the Christ. And she also said to the angel Gabriel during the Annunciation, may your word be fulfilled in me. I feel she is showing us how we are being invited by the spiritual world to be fully human. As an artistic gesture, the Madonna is also seen both as the mother of the Christ child, as well as the image of the human soul. In anthroposophical artistic theory, the color black is the color of cosmic will, transforming into human will. The concept of will is a bit diffuse, mainly because I think the earthly powers that be do not want us being aware of our will, so we are more easily manipulated to their will for our destruction. But will applies to how we do things in life, our deeds, what we do. The main agent of human will is the limbs, particularly the hands. For me, it is quite remarkable that these Madonnas are black and also have extremely large hands. The goddesses of antiquity, particularly Isis, had their hands up to the heavens. The symbolism is that these goddesses were gathering cosmic wisdom from the heavens. The Black Madonnas, in contrast, have their hands pointing downward. For me, this shows the transformation of the mysteries, from humans gathering cosmic wisdom from the heavens in antiquity to humans transforming this cosmic wisdom and bringing it down to earth with our wills and our deeds, mainly to create the kingdom of divinity on earth. The timing and placement of these images for me is one of the most fascinating aspects of comprehending the purpose of the images. The Black Madonnas started coming to the European continent in the 4th century with the Coptic monks of North Africa, particularly from Egypt. The bulk of the Black Madonnas placed throughout Europe in shrines and along the Camino de Santiago de Compostela were brought from Palestine by the Knights Templars and the Crusaders. Austrian mystic and philosopher Rudolf Steiner contextualizes the evolution of the ages in what he calls epochs. In each age or epoch, Steiner tells us that humanity has a certain task to fulfill and a mystery to comprehend. The age of both the Black Madonnas coming to Europe corresponds with the High Middle Ages and the Crusades. This age was considered by Steiner to be the time of the preparation for what he called the age of consciousness soul, which is our current age, the one I personally find so exhausting and painful. This age, which started in the Renaissance, was an age and is an age of discovery, of conquest, of the development of science, art, and institutions. This current age is where materialism becomes more institutionalized. Life became a commodity to be bought and sold, and the age of a persecuting society based on externals began in earnest. It was also the age where the concepts of and practices of racism and sexism became quite rampant, ultimately resulting in the colonization of entire continents and the debasement and enslavement of different races by the Europeans. Racism, in particular, is the practice of materialism on humanity, assigning material worth based on physical externals, such as skin color. I think it is very important to understand racism in this manner, that it is the practice of materialism being there is only the material world, there is only the physical, and the spirit and non-material is non-existent and therefore worthless. And while obviously the material world is real, it is only part of reality. Materialism as a perspective and a belief system, and remember that materialism is a belief system. It is a willful denial of spirit. And I charge that racism is the willful denial of spirit and soul in those who have different skin color or heritage. Racism is a willful denial that those who are different are part of creation. Racism is a willful denial that those who are different have the spark of the divine within. But when you deny Christ in others, you can oppress them, and that is the point of racism. The Black Madonnas became the main motif of Christian art in the Middle Ages, particularly in the ages of the Crusades. As Steiner informs us, the Crusades were the preparation for the time of what he calls the era of the consciousness soul. During the age of consciousness soul, humanity is to develop its capacity to be awake, discerning, and to think clearly. Steiner also tells us that the main mystery we are to comprehend and transform during the age of consciousness soul is the mystery of evil. What is of great note is that during the age of antiquity, the Greeks and Romans revered all items coming from the south, or what they recognized as Africa. This is symbolized through the story of the Queen of Sheba and Solomon, the transformation of the ancient mysteries to the next mysteries, which would be in Israel. This is evidenced by the moving of obelisks from Egypt into the Roman Empire. We also see evidence of this in the art of the Queen of Sheba in the Middle Ages. She was quite popular, and we can see this in some of the jam statues in Chartres Cathedral in France. Now, these statues in their heyday, which was in the 11th and 12th and 13th centuries, were painted, and the Queen of Sheba was black. And her artistry there's images of her throughout this cathedral. We know Christianity became quite developed in Africa, throughout Egypt and the entire continent during the first 3 centuries after the incarnation of Christ. Some of our most beloved Christian philosophers, such as St. Augustine of Hippo, were African. The Africans at this time, especially along trade routes, were highly educated and helped to develop the philosophy and tenets of Christianity that we take for granted today. They were responsible for writing down the scriptures and actually creating alphabets in order for different peoples to understand the written word. We can see that in the Middle Ages, Christianity was seen as a tri-continental religion between Africa, Asia, and Europe. We can see the recognition of this in medieval art of the 3 kings depicted as a European king, an Asian king, and an African magi, bringing gifts to the Christ child. The spiritual world communicates to humanity on many levels. Art is one method. The spiritual world also sees possible futures and often comes to humanity to guide in a positive direction. I think it is profound that these works of art, these Black Madonnas, were carried to Europe during the age of the Crusades and placed in shrines along the pilgrim routes of initiation of the day. As we evolve, we are placed in situations where we have the freedom to act in both loving moral ways and evil ways. The challenge of the age of consciousness soul is to be awake to spirit and to the true reality of the Christ within, and to not be distracted by the material world. We are also not to be distracted by lies. We're supposed to be able to discern truth from lie. I think these Madonnas were brought to Europe to remind humanity of our cosmic origins and the origins of our faith in Africa. I think these images were brought to Europe during the age of the Crusades to help the European populations to understand that divinity can be seen as Black and African, so that we could be reminded that there is divinity in all peoples. I think the large hands of these Madonnas and their color are reminding and inviting us of our connection to cosmic will, to overcome evil, and to see the divine universal equality in all of humanity. In order to be whole and healthy as an individual exposed to disease, the disease has to work itself out, sometimes with pain. But when it is brought out of the body, then the body can heal and be whole again. I think our current age, specifically these very eventful years since the dawn of the new millennium, as well as the events in the United States leading up to the election and the first year of this current presidency, are part of the disease process in order to become healthy and whole. Humanity needs to come to terms with our worship of the material in lieu of the spirit. One of the more ugly and painful aspects of this idolatry of materialism is racism. It is telling that so many who call themselves Christian are willing to turn a blind eye to the blatant, violent, and deadly racism perpetuated with casual regularity by the current president and his supporters, as somehow excusable, mainly because he seems to be making people richer. The pain of this is incalculable. In essence, the message is money is more important than the safety and dignity of certain racial, ethnic, and religious groups. This goes against the first commandment to not worship false idols, and against the charge of Christ in Matthew 25, to treat everyone as if you were acting towards divinity. It is our task to embrace this pain that is being perpetrated, to own our part into creating the pain, and to help transform the pain, to bring out the disease and heal it into a whole and healthy community of equal valued human beings. I think the Black Madonnas were brought to the European continent during the age of the Crusades because the spiritual world saw the potential for racism and bigotry of the Europeans in the coming age. The spiritual world was trying to communicate to European humanity, who was about to become the dominant power on earth, some very vital messages. To me, the Black Madonnas hearken to our origins, our cosmic and earthly origins. We owe the development of Christianity to our African ancestors. We see that the human soul is inside people with dark skin. We also see the cosmic will beckoning us to use our wills to align with this cosmic will and transform it into earthly will, to become a community of equals, since we are seen as equal before the eyes of the Creator. Before the uprisings in Soweto, South Africa, the activists would gather and pray before Black Madonna, Our Lady of Soweto. It is a modern image created by African artists. It is a powerful statement on the strivings of racial justice and equality. The Black Madonna of Czestochowa was prayed to during the age of the Solidarity movement in the 1970s and 80s that eventually overthrew the communist government of Poland. There is a German Black Madonna in Bavaria's Lake Chim that was placed in a shrine to challenge the notion of the enslavement of Africans in the 18th century. The Black Madonna can be seen as an invitation to be conscious in a very difficult time, as an invitation to recognize divinity in all, as an invitation to use our wills, our deeds to bring justice to all peoples that make up the tapestry of humanity. The Black Madonnas were placed in Europe, I think, as a reminder that all peoples have worth, regardless of their pigmentation or stature in life. In anticipation of the challenges of materialism that was to become the dominant belief system in our current age. For me, the Black Madonna reminds me not to be silent. She reminds me to act. One of the most profound acts we can do during this age of increasing divisions is to be kind to one another, to refuse to be separated from one another. One of the things we can do, especially to those of us who have been privileged, is we can listen and we can recognize the pain in others. We can recognize what we have done to contribute to that pain. And we need to figure out with our brothers and sisters who are in pain what we can do to help to alleviate that pain. If it means simply listening, then just listen. Or it can be something more dramatic, like marching, voting, donating to causes, or working to bring about justice. Each of us can do something to help create a beloved community on earth. This also means that we call attention to the hateful, divisive actions of those in power and the hateful, divisive actions to those who put these hateful, divisive people into power. We must ask the question, lovingly, what pain drives you to deny dignity in another person? What pain drives you to justify the denial of others' food? What hurt have you experienced that causes you to deny your brother and sister's dignity, safety, and security? We need to ask those who are oppressing, how are you conveying the love of Christ by denying food, shelter, and medicine to the weak and vulnerable? How are you showing the love of Christ by applauding those who are viciously and cruelly racist? Ask these people how others will know they are Christians by their love. We live in transformative times. We have access to more information on history than any other generation in the entire sojourn of humanity. We know what has happened in the past. We carry the greatest responsibility of any generation that has ever been born. We cannot claim ignorance anymore. No one has the luxury of silence anymore. If we fail to act to show love and inclusion, we are committing hate and exclusion. If we are silent while our brothers and sisters are being harmed, we are harming them. There is a reason the Black Madonnas are somber. They are telling us to get to work. We must confront the lies and evils of materialism now. The time is now to heal this wound of the illusion of racism that has caused so much suffering. We know how to do this. The question is, do we have the will to do what is necessary to heal the wound of racism? I think we do, mainly because I think the spiritual world believes we are capable of great things. The ball is in our court. What is the next step? The pictures in this video are from Wikimedia Commons, from my own personal pictures I have taken on my travels, and when presented, I give the credit to the photographer from the Interfaith Mary Black Madonna index page. If you would like to read the Black Madonna Mysterious Soul Companion, it is available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Audible, and the Espresso Book Machine. Blessings on your journey.